Now, some mistakes that people tend to make as they're learning how to pummel and they're practicing some of these drills or some of these exercises when they're trying to put it all together. There is a tendency for people who are less experienced to tend to overcommit their shoulders. By that I mean, if there's a line here and my opponent's chest is here, if I'm going too much leaning forward from side to side, that's not good. I want to keep my chest relatively square as I'm digging, so I want to be economical with my shoulders. I don't want to overextend myself. I don't want to overextend myself here. That's really crucial. I'm keeping my chest relatively square to my opponent and trying to keep my midline always pointed towards his midline the whole time I'm doing this type of an exercise. The danger, if you get to where you're getting too wild and your arms are extending too much and you're overcommitting with your shoulders, is you can get thrown in that position or you can get moved easily. So if I'm here and I'm digging and Colby's really moving his shoulders back and forth a lot, as he's coming through, if he's overcommitting on this shoulder here, that's going to be my opportunity to attack. Okay? So when you're pummeling, it's crucial you stop when you get to a certain position here. You're not going to be overextending yourself. So when you pummel, it's not a wild, flailing type motion, but in fact, it's relatively controlled and fairly economical in movement. That's really crucial. So when you're practicing it, don't be going like back and forth like this, because that's very incorrect technically here. Okay? If he comes back, if we're both moving our shoulders too much, one of the times I can come through to attack. Okay? So it's crucial that you keep the notion of your movement being economical. So when I'm digging, I keep my chest square to my opponent and I'm not overcommitting my shoulder. Next, another thing that people do when they're learning this that's incorrect is there's too much emphasis on your arms from the perspective of that's where your push is coming from. You're using your arms, of course, as you're digging and pummeling, and that's going to take and require a certain amount of energy. It's also going to result in a certain amount of fatigue. However, a good portion of your push is actually coming from your feet. So when I'm digging here, my dig and my power is coming from my feet as I'm driving through. It's not simply standing still and just using my arm power to try to dig in. This is kind of a pushing and a shoving match, and so we're going to be pushing and digging. Gold is digging, he's pushing into me here. So a lot of the push power comes from your feet and not simply trying to power through with your arms. Of course, your arms are committed a lot from the perspective of you're going to be pushing hard with your arms, but actually the most amount of your push is ultimately coming from your feet, which means that I've got to adjust my angle relative to my opponent to get maximum push power. If I'm standing perfectly vertically here, I can't be using my feet very effectively to push Colby. Conversely, if I'm too low in here, I'm going to get snapped down. So there has to be somewhere in between where I can prevent getting snapped down, but at the same time can get an angle so that I can push. Okay, I can't push Colby standing up here, but as my angle changes, there comes a point where I have much more advantage in being able to push him with my legs. You need to find that angle that's going to be most advantageous for good push power through your legs. So as I'm digging with Colby, and you'll notice here my hips get a little low here too. I'm not exactly upright because I don't have good push power that way, so I'm pushing. And again, the goal isn't just to keep muscling back and forth. There's times to give way, there's times to attack, there's times to circle. And that's something you'll develop as you practice with your pummeling technique.